The $42 million silence that shook the NBA. James Harden did not need a microphone to send shockwaves through the league. He did not need a dramatic tweet, a leaked workout video, or a cryptic Instagram story. All he did was step away from $42.3 million, stay quiet, and suddenly the entire NBA started asking the same question: what does he know that everyone else does not? Because this was not just another contract decision. This was not a veteran testing the market for one last payday. This was James Harden, a former MVP with a massive player option sitting right in front of him, choosing not to take the money immediately. And the timing made it impossible to ignore. LeBron James had just become the biggest name on the open market. After years in Los Angeles, after 4 championships, 4 MVPs, and a career that already belongs in basketball history forever, LeBron was suddenly available. And the team, sitting in the shadows, waiting for one last emotional reunion, was the Cleveland Cavaliers. But Cleveland had a problem. They wanted LeBron. The fan base wanted LeBron. The story wanted LeBron. The entire basketball world could already picture the final chapter. The kid from Akron coming home one more time, back to the franchise where everything began. But the salary cap did not care about nostalgia. The Cavs' books were crowded. Their roster was expensive. Their flexibility was limited. For weeks, the idea of a LeBron return sounded beautiful, but financially impossible. Then Harden moved. By declining his $42.3 million player option, Harden gave Cleveland breathing room. Not a guarantee, not a finished deal, but a door. A real door. And in the NBA, sometimes one open door is enough to change an entire summer. What makes this even more dramatic is that Harden was not coming off a perfect season. He had pressure on him. Critics questioned whether Cleveland made a mistake trading for him. Fans wondered if he could still defend at the highest level. Analysts were already debating whether the Cavs had given up too much. Harden could have taken the money, protected himself, and avoided the noise. Instead, he waited. That is the part that makes this story dangerous. Harden did not just opt out, he put his own future on pause so Cleveland could chase someone bigger than the moment, someone who represents history, legacy, unfinished business, and maybe the final chapter of an all-time career. Now the league is watching, the Warriors are watching, Miami is watching, Minnesota is watching. Every contender that dreams of adding LeBron is watching. But Cleveland may have the one thing nobody else can copy: home. And if Harden's silence really opened the path for LeBron James to return to Cleveland, then this might not just be an off-season rumor. This might be the move that changes the final act of LeBron's career. So before we go deeper, let us know where you are watching from right now. Are you in Cleveland, Los Angeles, Miami, Golden State, or somewhere else? If you believe LeBron should finish his career back home with the Cavaliers, comment 1. If you think he should chase one more ring somewhere else, comment 2. And if you want more NBA stories like this, make sure you subscribe, because this LeBron Harden Cavs situation is only getting crazier from here. Cleveland's impossible doors suddenly open. For weeks, the Cleveland Cavaliers were trapped in the worst kind of NBA fantasy. They had the emotional argument, they had the history, they had the city, they had the fan base already imagining LeBron James walking back into Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse one last time. But they did not have the money. And in the modern NBA, emotion does not beat the salary cap. That was the brutal reality. Cleveland could want LeBron as badly as any team in basketball, but wanting him and making a real offer were two completely different things. Their roster was already expensive, their payroll was tight, their core was locked into major commitments: Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, James Harden. This was not a team sitting around with empty books and a clean path to chase a superstar. That is why so many people around the league dismissed the reunion talk at first. It sounded great on television. It sounded beautiful for fans. It sounded like the perfect final chapter. But when people looked at the numbers, the dream started falling apart. Cleveland could maybe offer LeBron a small deal, maybe the minimum, maybe a symbolic return. But for a player like LeBron James, even at 41 years old, that did not feel realistic unless something changed. Then something changed. Harden declined his option, and suddenly the math was not dead anymore. Cleveland did not instantly become a team with unlimited freedom, but the situation shifted just enough to make people look twice. The Cavs were no longer frozen. They had movement. They had flexibility. They had a chance to rearrange the board before LeBron made his final decision. That is why Harden's move mattered so much. It was not only about his contract, it was about timing. He made the decision before Cleveland's window closed. He gave the front office a chance to breathe, to explore trades, to clear salaries, to create a path that did not exist one day earlier. And that is when the whispers got louder. Maybe Cleveland was not just dreaming. Maybe the quiet front office was not being passive. Maybe they were waiting on Harden, waiting on LeBron, waiting for the right move to unlock the entire summer. The NBA is full of loud moves, trades get announced, stars post cryptic messages, agents leak pressure through the media, but sometimes the most important move is the one nobody hears until the consequences start showing up. That is what happened here. Harden did not bring LeBron to Cleveland by himself, but he changed the conversation from impossible to possible. And once a LeBron James story becomes possible, it becomes dangerous, because every team knows what follows. Pressure, headlines, phone calls, emotional pitches, and front offices making moves they swore they were not going to make. Cleveland had been standing outside the door. Harden may have handed them the key. Harden's risk after the playoff collapse. The most dramatic part of this story is not just that James Harden gave Cleveland a path. It is that he did it at a moment when his own reputation was already under attack. This was not Harden coming off a perfect playoff run, covered in praise and protected by public support. This was Harden after a painful postseason, after criticism, after questions, after fans wondered if Cleveland had made the wrong bet. The Cavaliers had traded away Darius Garland, a homegrown guard, a player the city had watched develop, a name tied deeply to the future of the franchise. And in return, they brought in Harden, older, more famous, more experienced, but also more complicated. That trade was always going to be judged in May and June. And when Cleveland collapsed against New York, the judgment came fast. Every missed rotation became part of the case against Harden. Every possession where Jalen Brunson found space became a replayed clip. Every quiet offensive stretch turned into a debate about whether the old Harden was gone for good. The critics did not need much time. They said Cleveland got slower. They said Cleveland lost defensive bite. They said Harden could still create, but maybe he could not survive the deepest playoff matchups anymore. That is a heavy thing for a veteran to carry, because Harden has already lived through years of playoff narratives. Houston heartbreaks, Brooklyn chaos, Philadelphia disappointment, Clippers uncertainty. He knows what it feels like when the basketball world decides your story before you get to finish writing it. So when he entered this offseason, he had every reason to protect himself. Take the money, control the damage, lock in the $42.3 million, let Cleveland solve its own problems. Nobody would have blamed him. But that is what makes the decision hit harder. Harden chose not to hide behind the contract. He chose not to grab the biggest number and disappear from the pressure. Instead, he put himself right back in the center of the storm, because helping Cleveland chase LeBron also meant inviting even more scrutiny. If LeBron came, people would ask whether Harden could adjust. If LeBron did not come, people would ask why Harden waited. If the Cavs moved pieces to create space, people would ask whether the roster became too thin. No matter what happened, Harden's name would be attached to the outcome. That is a real gamble, but maybe Harden understood something deeper. Maybe he knew that after a playoff collapse, the only way to change the conversation was not through words. It was through sacrifice, through patience, through proving that he still cared about winning more than comfort. Because in the NBA, reputations do not change because a player says the right thing. They change when a player does something that costs him, and Harden's decision cost him control. That is why Cleveland's front office could not ignore it. That is why LeBron's camp had to notice it. That is why the league suddenly looked at Harden differently. He was not just the aging guard trying to hold on. He became the veteran willing to move first so the franchise could chase something bigger. That does not erase the playoff question, but it does make the story more complicated. And in the NBA, complicated stories are usually the ones that explode. The LeBron sweepstakes explodes. The moment LeBron James became available, the NBA stopped moving like a normal league and started moving like a panic room. Every contender asked the same question: can we get him? Not because LeBron is still 28 years old, not because he is expected to carry a franchise for the next decade, but because this could be the last ride of the greatest player of his generation, and no serious organization wanted to be the team that never made the call. Golden State had the obvious star power. Imagine LeBron next to Stephen Curry, two of the most defining players of the modern era, sharing one final championship chase. The Warriors could sell legacy, spacing, experience, and the kind of basketball intelligence LeBron respects. Even if the fit was complicated, the image alone was powerful enough to scare the league. Miami had its own emotional weapon. LeBron knows that city. He won there. He became a different kind of champion there. And if the Heat could build a serious contender around him, the idea of returning to South Beach for one more title run would not be easy to dismiss. Miami always believes it can win the room, because Miami sells culture with absolute confidence. Minnesota had youth, hunger, and a rising sense that the franchise was no longer waiting for permission to be taken seriously. Philadelphia had star power and desperation. Denver had championship credibility. Every team had a pitch. Every team had a reason. Every team had a version of the story where LeBron chooses them and the league loses its mind. But Cleveland had something different. Cleveland did not just offer basketball. Cleveland offered memory. This is where LeBron became the chosen one. This is where the impossible pressure began. This is where the heartbreak happened. This is where the apology became a return. This is where the 3-1 comeback became immortality. This is where an entire region cried, because one championship meant more than basketball. No other team could sell that. And that is why the sweepstakes became so dangerous, because every other franchise was trying to win LeBron's future, while Cleveland was trying to complete his past. That kind of pitch does not show up on a spreadsheet. Still, the basketball questions were real. Could LeBron, Harden, and Donovan Mitchell share the same floor without the offense turning crowded? Could Cleveland keep enough defense if role players had to be moved? Could Evan Mobley continue developing with so many veteran stars around him? Could the Cavs balance nostalgia with a real title plan? Those questions matter. But when LeBron James is deciding, logic does not always control the room. Legacy does. Relationships do. Timing does. The feeling of one last perfect chapter does. That is why Harden's move became so important. It gave Cleveland enough flexibility to stay in a race that should have left them behind. It allowed the Cavs to stop being just the emotional option and become a strategic one. Suddenly, the Cavaliers were not just calling LeBron. They were making room for him. And around the league, that is when people started getting nervous. Why? Cleveland feels different. Every team chasing LeBron James can offer something. Golden State can offer Stephen Curry. Miami can offer culture and history. Denver can offer a championship system. Minnesota can offer youth, athleticism, and a fresh title push. But Cleveland can offer something none of them can copy. For LeBron, Cleveland is not just another team on a free agency list. It is where the story began. It is Akron. It is the first jersey, the first impossible pressure, the first heartbreak, the first return, and most importantly, it is where he delivered the championship that changed the city forever. That is why this possible reunion feels bigger than basketball. If LeBron is truly entering the final chapter of his career, Cleveland becomes more than a landing spot. It becomes the perfect ending, but the emotional pull comes with real risk. If he returns and the team does not work, every loss becomes a legacy debate. Every Harden mistake becomes a headline. Every Mitchell possession gets analyzed. Every lineup problem becomes national news. Still, Cleveland has enough talent to make the dream feel real. Donovan Mitchell brings scoring, Evan Mobley brings defense and future upside. Jarrett Allen brings size, Harden brings playmaking, LeBron would bring leadership, control, and championship experience. That is why Harden's sacrifice matters so much. By waiting, he helped turn Cleveland from a sentimental fantasy into a possible basketball plan. For every other team, LeBron would be an addition. For Cleveland, he would be a return. The roster. Puzzle behind the dream. The dream is beautiful, but the fit is complicated. LeBron James, James Harden, and Donovan Mitchell all like to control the ball. That could make Cleveland extremely dangerous, or it could create major problems if the roles are not clear. If everyone sacrifices, the Cavs could have one of the smartest offenses in the East. LeBron could organize the game, Harden could run pick and rolls and lead second units, Mitchell could attack defenses that are already stretched. That version of Cleveland would be scary. But if the chemistry is wrong, possessions could slow down. Too much dribbling, too many stars waiting, too many players trying to control the same moment. The front court also creates questions. Evan Mobley is the future, so Cleveland cannot damage his development. Jarrett Allen gives them size and defense, but his contract could become important if the Cavs need to make a major move. That is the hard part. Every step toward LeBron might cost Cleveland another useful piece. Depth matters too. A championship team needs defenders, shooters, bench players, and veterans who accept smaller roles. If the Cavs clear too much space, they could land the superstar but weaken the team around him. So this is not just a dream. It is a chess match. Harden opened the door, but Cleveland still has to make the right moves. If they do, LeBron, Harden, Mitchell, Mobley, and the right supporting cast could become a real threat. If they get it wrong, the dream could turn into pressure overnight. The front office starts clearing the path. After Harden declined his option, Cleveland's front office had a choice. Treat it like a normal contract move or recognize it as a rare opening. They seemed to understand the moment. The Cavaliers were quiet, but that silence felt intentional. They were not rushing into random signings. They were not filling roster spots just to look active. They looked like a team waiting for the biggest domino to fall. That is what made the league suspicious. Harden's decision gave Cleveland flexibility. From there, the Cavs could explore trades, clear salary, protect key pieces, and prepare for a LeBron pursuit that once looked impossible. But making room for LeBron is never painless. Role players matter, defenders matter, shooters matter, chemistry matters. If Cleveland moves too many pieces, they might create space for LeBron, but lose the depth needed to win. That is the danger. LeBron changes everything. He raises the ceiling, but he also forces every front office to make uncomfortable choices. Who stays, who goes, who takes less, who accepts a smaller role, who becomes expendable. Cleveland cannot afford to chase a headline and forget the roster. Still, the front office knows what is at stake. A LeBron return would instantly become one of the biggest stories in the NBA. It would bring attention, belief, pressure, and history back to Cleveland. And behind all of it is Harden's first move. He stepped aside. The Cavs started clearing space. Now the entire league is watching to see whether Cleveland is preparing for a rumor or for a reunion. The Bronny factor and the emotional twist, just when the story already felt dramatic enough, another name entered the conversation: Bronny James. Nothing about this part should be treated as guaranteed, but the speculation matters because it shows how big the Cleveland dream could become. If LeBron is thinking about his final NBA chapter, people naturally wonder whether Bronny could somehow be part of that ending too. That would make the story even more emotional. LeBron returning to Cleveland is already powerful. LeBron returning to Cleveland with a family element connected to Bronny would turn it into something much bigger than free agency. It would become a full circle moment. The greatest player in Cavaliers history coming back to where it all started, with the next generation tied to the final act. But Cleveland has to be careful. A team cannot be built only on emotion. Roster spots matter, fit matters, winning still matters. If the Cavs make moves only because they sound beautiful, the basketball could suffer. That is why flexibility is so important. The Cavs need enough room to chase LeBron, possibly explore other related moves, and still protect the core of the team. They cannot lose too much defense, too much shooting, or too much depth. The Bronny angle adds emotion, but it also adds pressure. Every decision would be watched, every move would be questioned, every rumor would grow. That is the LeBron effect. One decision from him can reshape an entire franchise's plan, and Harden's $42 million silence may be the move that gave Cleveland enough space to even think this big. Harden's image changes overnight. James Harden entered this offseason with questions all around him. Some fans saw him as a former MVP who could still create offense. Others saw an aging star who struggled in the playoffs and did not fully replace Darius Garland. After Cleveland's painful postseason, Harden's name was tied to criticism, doubt, and frustration. Then everything changed. By declining his $42.3 million option, Harden shifted the conversation. Suddenly, people were not only talking about his defense or playoff struggles, they were talking about sacrifice. They were talking about patience. They were talking about a veteran who could have taken the money immediately, but instead gave Cleveland a chance to chase LeBron James. That does not erase the questions, but it changes the story. Harden became the player who waited, the player who stepped back, the player who opened a door for something bigger than himself. If LeBron returns to Cleveland, Harden will not be seen as just another aging star on the roster. He will be remembered as the first domino, the man whose contract decision made the dream possible, but the pressure will not disappear. If LeBron comes, Harden must adjust. He must accept fewer touches, defend with focus, and prove he can help a championship team without needing everything built around him. That is the real test. Sacrifice only matters if winning follows. But for now, Harden has changed the way people look at him. He did not give a speech. He did not start a social media campaign. He simply made a move that forced the whole league to pay attention. Sometimes redemption does not begin with no. Sometimes it begins with silence. LeBron's final choice and the lesson behind the drama. Now everything depends on LeBron James. Harden already made his move. Cleveland already created flexibility. The league already noticed. The rumors already exploded. But none of it becomes history unless LeBron chooses to walk through the door. And this decision is bigger than normal free agency. At this stage of his career, LeBron is not just choosing a team. He is choosing the final image of his NBA story. The last jersey, the last playoff chase, the last chapter fans will remember. If he chooses Golden State, it becomes a final championship experiment with Stephen Curry. If he chooses Miami, it becomes a return to the place where he became a champion. If he chooses another contender, it becomes a pure ring chase. But if he chooses Cleveland, it becomes closure. Strategically, the Cavaliers must be smart. They cannot let nostalgia control every move. Harden has to accept a cleaner role. Mitchell has to stay aggressive. Mobley has to keep developing. The front office has to protect defense, shooting, and depth. Big names do not automatically win championships. Fit wins, trust wins, sacrifice wins, clear roles win. That is the lesson behind this drop. Harden's decision shows that leadership does not always need to be loud. Sometimes it means stepping back so something bigger can happen. He did not know whether LeBron would come. He did not know whether the move would work, but he opened the door anyway. LeBron's side carries another lesson. Legacy is not only about trophies, it is also about meaning. Cleveland is tied to his beginning, his pressure, his heartbreak, his redemption, and his greatest promise fulfilled. If he returns, it should not be about ego. It should be about peace, gratitude, competition, and giving fans one final honest chapter. So now the NBA waits. Harden chose patience. Cleveland chose possibility. LeBron must choose meaning. If you think LeBron should return to Cleveland and finish his career where it all started, comment 1. If you think he should chase one more ring somewhere else, comment 2. If Harden's move changed the way you see this story, hit like, share this video with another NBA fan, and subscribe to the channel, because this LeBron Cavaliers drama may be far from over.